Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome to our review and demo of the Peavey Rage. This is an amp from way back in the 80s, and this was given to me actually from a customer of mine when I was doing some work on his crawler for him. Anyways, he says, "Can you use this?" And I'm like, "Yeah, awesome." So, yeah, a little bit about this amp. You've got two independent channels. You've got your clean channel, which we're on now, and my volume level is at 2, and this thing is still quite loud. And then of course we have a dirty channel, which has super saturation and post. Now what this will do is it takes over the volume, because you can do whatever you want to this, and they are independent channels, okay? So that's at half on the saturation, so let's put that full tilt. And then let's just turn it right off, and you get nothing, okay? Now you can also mix this up the other way too. You can put your post at full, bring your saturation level up. And so you can mix it up really good. Now my EQ is, everything's at 12 o'clock, bass, mid, and treble. So you do have a 3-band EQ with this. You have a preamp output, which you can go into a tape or into a mixing console. You also have a stereo headphone jack, so you can play in private and listen to yourself and not disturb anybody. This thing does have an 8-inch full paper cone speaker in it, and it does quite well for the age of this amp, and it's all original. It's just amazing. I mean, even the speaker is just in amazing condition for the age. Going around the back here, of course, you've got all these specs. You've got 12 watts. Which is your full output power, 7 volts RMS, or 7V, 4 ohm load, okay, and that's what you're going to get for power. And so of course you've got your Peavey speaker in there, and it's tagged Peavey, and so you know it's all original there. 120 volt AC is what it plugs into the wall, 60 hertz, 40 watt power consumption. Don't get consumption mixed up with wattage output. So many people do, it's crazy. But this top line is what you want to pay attention to, is 12 watts, okay? And it's 12 watts of brutally kick butt power. Of course you got your little LED light to tell you your power is either on or off. And it is all solid state circuitry, it's not tubes, okay? I mean, this is back in the 80s, and I mean even nowadays they still make amps with tubes, right? Very thick cabinet. The open back design is nice. It really allows things to really just come out of there and just come alive. The bass response out of this amp is exceptionally good. I'm using my Fender Strat, and that's nice. Okay, that's the sturdy channel. Let's go to the clean. Put that at 2. And I'm on the bridge with the center, so let's just go to the bridge pickup. So it's got very, very good bass response, and even for just being at 12 o'clock, you know, on the dials. Very good. The highs are also nice, you know. And so it is a very good responsive amp. I mean, it is a very good amp. It's a great practice amp. It's very idealistic too, and I'm talking from personal experience. Back in the 80s, I had an Audition 20 amp, so did the lead guitarist, and our other guitarist, I can't remember what he had, but none of us had a Rage. And the only real difference between the Rage and the Audition 20, other than I think a couple of watts difference, was the Audition 20 offered a lot better saturation. It would have this exact same sound for saturation, but then it had a post pull switch to, it's called a thick switch. and it would really super thicken up that distortion, so we could get some really nice dirty sound out of it. And we used to crank these amps like everything 10 on the dial, you know. I mean, we'd leave our EQ where we needed it, but you know, volume levels right to 10, and we just jam all day long. And there was no problem getting over top the drummer enough, you know, and our drummer had an acoustic drum set, and these little amps, you know, they get right over top that, no problem. Now that's okay, like in a small room, or you know, maybe a small sized gymnasium, you know, type of thing. But I mean, these are not bar gigging amps by any means. They're not professional level amps by any means. These are practice amps, you know, and they're meant for jamming, and they can take a lot of torture. I'm not kidding you when I said we used to crank it to 10, and we played for hours at a time and never hurt the speaker, never hurt the amps, never ever once had a failure. Peavey is really solid equipment. They always have been. But anyways, so your basics is just that, you know, 8-inch driver, 12 watts of power, stereo headphone jack, bass mid treble, preamp out to a mixer or tape player, your saturation channel, your clean channel, you know, and on 2, this is all the volume is on 2. As you can see from my level here, it's on 2. And I'm not strumming that hard, you know. So it can get quite loud, you know, so if we want to dial it down a bit. And even dialing it down, it can still be loud, but I mean, this is a good reasonable level, you know, even for inside this room. You know, and throwing pedals on this is no big deal. You know, hook in your pedal kit, have a blast with it. You know, it's a good long life durable amp. You know, overall, I mean, let's put this thing at 3 3/4 out of 5. I mean, that's where I'm gonna sit with it. I think it more than deserves a 3 3/4 out of 5 for sure. As far as price point goes, I don't know what they sold for brand new back in the 80s, but I know nowadays, I mean, I've even been researching this one. I've seen it anywhere from, you know, $20 in really super rough condition, upwards to pretty much mint condition as this one is, for upwards to $80, $90, you know, on the top side of things. And, you know, they're still worth the money, you know. You know, even though it is a vintage amp, if you get one that's in really super good shape, still working perfect, you know, no problems with it, you know, all original speaker and everything, you're doing really good. You know, if it doesn't have an original speaker, that's going to take that, even if the rest of the amp is mint, if it's not the original speaker, then I would probably not pay very much at all for it, very little in fact. Unless somebody threw a Blue Marvel in there, in which case, all right, I'm in for about $80 tops, you know, with a Blue Marvel, because they are a really nice speaker, but so is this one. And this amp works exceptionally well with my Stratocaster, and that's what I'm playing on, is my Fender Strat. So I don't know if you can see the headstock there, but this is what I'm playing on, is my Fender Strat. And my Strat loves this amp. I love playing the Strat on this amp. So it is a great little amp, good protective corners, good thick wood, you know. The open back design is nice. It's going to allow a lot of that sound to flow through the area, you know. And if you want to get it to muffle out a little bit, you can throw the amp right up against a wall and you can get it to, you know, muffle out a bit and probably create a little bit more bass response for you too at the same time. A lot of tricks you can do with amps. Nice storage area, you know, jam your power cord in there, jam a pedal or two, just be careful you don't nail your speaker, you know, and you know, keep in mind, I mean, this is 12 watts of power, 7 VRMS at 4 ohm load, and that's the speaker, okay, this is the 4 ohm speaker. Now, 120 volts AC, 60 hertz, 40 watts. 40 watts is the power consumption. Don't mix these up, okay? There is a huge difference. And like I said, straight rage only, okay? It's not a rage of any other model. It's just a straight, flat-out Peavey rage. And very cool amp, very nice amp. Works really well. I accidentally shut the power off. It shuts off pretty quick. Comes on instantly. Solid state circuitry is awesome. So very clean, even on the clean channel. Saturation channel is like it's basically an overdrive, a crunchy overdrive setup. But you can manipulate things too. I mean, I've got this here. The saturation's on 10 and my volume's at 2. Okay, you can turn this one off, turn this full blast, turn this one up. And you can give it a nice good punch, eh? And you get some amazing volume, and that's not even on 2. That's like, what, 1.5 maybe? You know? So if you're gonna jam with the band in their house type of thing, you're easily gonna get over top of an acoustic drum set with this thing. You know, no problems at all. And it can take the power, you know, it can take everything you can dish into it. You know, Peavey amps, old or new, are very strong machines. And when I was in the band when I was younger, we had Edition 20s, most of us in the group, and we just cranked the dials all to 10 and just went nuts, you know, and we jammed all day, and you know, no failures, no blown out speakers, no cooking amps. I mean, these things were made to take the punishment, you know, and so they do very, very well. And so I'm quite pleased with this amp. It was cool to get it for given to me, but even cooler that my Strat likes this amp, and I like how my Strat sounds with this amp. So I think my Strat's going to spend a lot of time playing on this amplifier and not so much on my Roland Cube anymore. And that's the big thing when you're looking at amplifiers, guys. Take your guitar with you that you're going to play the most of, we'll say, because a lot of us have more than one guitar. You know, make sure that, you know, what you're buying for an amp, it's not about the name, and it isn't. It really isn't about the name. It's about that sound you're after, you know. Can your guitar match well with it? Does it sound good to you? You know, bring the volume levels up, see where you're at, you know, and see how you like the sound at the different levels. And if it's a good match for you, then hey, that's the amp for you. You know, just because it says Mesa Boogie or Fender or Marshall or Yamaha or, well, even Peavey's, you know, because there are a lot of Peavey amps that just sound horrid, even on humbucker guitars, you know, and same with the Rolands, you know, my humbucker guitars, I prefer them all on my Roland amp, and I tried my humbucker guitar on this one last night, and it was okay, it wasn't bad. But it was no Roland. I could hear the difference, you know, it's like, that's just not as pleasing to me. And then when I hooked the Strat in, it's like, now that's awesome. That's what I'm looking for a tone out of my Fender, you know. And so this amp just perfect, you know, for that. So, yeah, so anyways, that's about as much as I can tell you about the amp. I mean, you know, definitely 80s, 12 watts of power. The thing is in awesome condition for the age. You know, everything works perfect on it, which is great. You know, the controls where you see them is, you know, bass, mid, and treble. I usually don't move off my centers, you know, because this way I'm not taking away from the amp, but I'm also not adding more to the amp. I've got pedals I can do that stuff with if I want. So I generally always leave my controls in the middle for the bass, mids, and trebs. The saturation circuit is nice. The clean channel is very nice on it. You know, and like I said, it is a loud amp, so just be aware that even though this is small in size, I mean, my camera is at pretty much floor level, okay? You know, so you get an idea. This is, you know, it's not a physically big amp, you know, in physical size, and it doesn't have like a ton of wattage, but that 12 watts, man, it's almost like having 1,000 watts when you crank things up. It is just so loud, and it stays fairly clean too, which is nice. You know, it's not like perfectly clean, because nothing really is, but it still stays really clean even at the larger volume levels. You know, so it is a pretty decent amp, and I like it. Made in USA stuff, of course, right? Anyways, so let me know what you guys think. I couldn't find even any videos on this Rage myself on YouTube, which surprised me. And even when I was looking for an Edition 20 video, I only saw like one that I found so far. And I'm still after an Edition 20 amp, because the Edition 20 was one of my favorite amps when I was in the band. Also, when it came to just the fact that it's a part of history with me. It was one of the first amps I bought myself, you know, as a real guitar amp when I was a kid. And, well, I guess not really kid, teenager, you know, type of thing. I was like 15, 16 type of thing. I really like the Edition 20, and I want to try and find one that's in as good a condition as this. And that's hard. I know where there's one in town here, and they want way too much for it considering the condition. And it'll probably take me about 3 weeks just to clean it up. So I really don't want to pay that kind of money for garbage. I saw one on eBay for 40 bucks, and it was in actually 5 times better condition. But then of course you got shipping involved, right? So I'll keep my eyes peeled, but I'm very happy with this Rage. This was an awesome deal all the way around. You know, but even if I was looking at purchasing something like this, like if you're looking at purchasing an old Rage, I've seen these things anywhere from $20 to $90 on the internet. You know, as far as that sort of thing goes, like for sale stuff, it was the lack of videos, right? But for sale, 20 to 80, 20 to 90 in that area. But it depends on the condition, and you really got to check out the controls are really good, check out the jacks, make sure everything works, you know, that sort of thing before you even hand over any cash. But also make sure that your guitar sounds good with this amp, because just because it's a Peavey Rage and I'm telling you it's a great amp with my Strat, it's also, that's the sound I'm looking for, right? Out of my Strat, I want that sound, and I got that sound with this amp, right? So, you know, make sure when you're looking at amplifiers, take your guitar with you that you're going to play the most, and then go from there, and then shop around. Same as when you're buying a brand new amp. Take your guitar with you that you play the most of, and do it that way, right? And then this way, you're going to have a better choice of amp. Just be aware, though, that whatever area you play in when you're checking out amps, it's not going to sound exactly the same when you get home, but it'll be close, okay? Because every room has different acoustics. Even my room in here, it's now my music room, and I've totally taken out all of my RC stuff, including my parts cabinets. I still have a few other things to remove, but I'm changing the tone and the sound in this room as I'm moving stuff. And so my amplifiers are going to react differently too, right? And so when you add or take away from a room area, dampen it or tone it up, you know, your amp is going to change. But anyways, enough of that stuff. Enjoy, have fun. Thank you for watching. Feel free to leave questions and comments, and I'll do the best I can to answer them as always. And we shall catch you guys on the next vid. Later.